Welcome back, everyone. I'm Zell, and today we're gonna get a look at what's inside the Bestech Goblin. All right, guys. I couldn't find a dime, so we're gonna try a penny and see if that works. And it does appear to be working if the other side of the pivot isn't spinning on me. And it isn't. Now, when we took the Zen apart, the pivot did spin on me. And to avoid that, before we get it apart here, open the knife, lay it on something that you're not going to worry about cutting, like this mat here, and put a little bit of force here at the pivot down. And what you're doing is you're kind of making a pinch point to allow you, put some pressure in there against that pivot to keep it from rotating and allow you to get the pivot screw loose. If you do come across that problem with these knives that don't have captured pivots. And the penny idea seems to be working. If you have a dime and you try this, let me know, because the dime may work better. I'm not sure. But the US penny is doing its job. If you live somewhere else, I'm sure there's a coin of about the same diameter and about the same thickness in your country's arsenal. And there is our pivot screw, all out of there. And they've got some really nice hardware. I just wish they'd capture their pivots. So there we go. And now let's get us a T6 and see if we can get these two end screws apart. There we go. That one came right out. And that one came right out. So I bet, yep, comes right apart. And there we go. Again, small knife from Bestech. And we have nice bearings. I'll just lift the blade off there. I'm trying to make this too hard. Nice bearings. He used kind of a thick grease. I'm not a fan of that. It seems to work okay, but every time I take one of these apart, put some 10-weight nano oil in it, or whatever your oil of choice would be, always works better. There's our little backspacer. Very nicely cut, very nicely done. Using little spools. They are step spools, so they hold themselves in place. That's important. If it isn't stepped, then the handle slabs can move on that screw and mess up the alignment of your blade. There's our stop pin. It's stepped as well. And after a while, I remember what that knife was we took apart the other day. The Feist, maybe? I'm not sure. Had all kinds of play. And this one's got some play in it, but not like that other one. Oh my God, that was something else. All right, let's get our washers out of here if we can. There we go. There's one. And there's the other one. Get a look at the handle scales. Nicely milled. They even milled these things for weight on such a small knife. That's pretty impressive. I've got it good and dirty in there. We'll have to clean that up. And there's our lock bar insert, over travel stop, hardened steel, blah, 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 lock interface. Very, very nicely done. And something I don't think I mentioned whenever I did the review is we've got a relief cut right there. That's friggin' beautiful. Bestech is listening. These guys, I have spoken with Selena, their sales manager, on a few occasions. And she's a very nice lady. If you look at the Bestech knives from LTK, he spoke with Selena in person. She's a very nice lady. And from what I can tell about Bestech, I would like to meet more of their staff. But if they're like Selena, they are trying their darndest to make good knives and interesting designs for everyone at more reasonable prices. Now, I know this one we've got in our hands right here is, some of you are going to say, isn't as a reasonable price. But I will say I laid out my own cash for this guy. Most of the Bestech knives that have been through here, I did not lay out my own money for. But in this case, I did, because I wanted this Goblin. I wanted this slightly bigger blade and this same handle design. So, anyhow, I guess we ought to clean up the blade too, huh? We'll get a look at that blade, because it's got fingerprints all over it, I'm sure. Because that's the one thing, their finish gets fingerprints all over it. But they have stone washed this and then ground it, and man, it is just well done. As you can see, I'm duly impressed with what they're doing. You get a little acetone out here and get those bearings and washers cleaned up. And then we ought to be ready to put some Vibratite on this and wait on it, of course. So there we go. Let's get a look at this. We got some stuff on there. We better clean it up a little bit with the acetone. Yeah, that's pretty good. 2 little screws, we'll try to get them. They're tiny screws. Wonder what size they are. We've got a little TI connector board over here. We'll look here in just a moment. Grab this thing. A little anodizing board from TI Connectors. But let's see if these guys are 256. That's what I would assume they are. And yep, they are 256 screws. Fit down in a little 256 hole on this really well. This is an anodizing board, also a screw sizer, as you can see. But kind of neat from TI Connectors for anodizing your screws. I have not used it yet because I'm waiting for a couple more things to come in for my anodizing setup. But I will be using it. There you go. Let's get a little bit of Vibratite on this guy. Remember to shake your Vibratite. Vibe your Vibratite. And I'm even going to go and put a little, since that pivot stayed in where it's supposed to be, I'm going to put a little on the pivot too. Some on these screws. I'm not going overboard on this small knife. Trying just to put just a little bit on them. And you guys know the drill. We got to wait for a half an hour now to put this thing back together because that Vibratite has to cure some. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, let's get this Goblin back together. We need our backing washers, and our counterbores are in the handles, so we get that backspacer back on there. So we need some 10 weight oil. We'll drop a couple. I got the 10. Drop a couple of drops there, and put our bearings in with the cage up and the open part down. Put just a couple of drops on the top of the cage. We got our stop pin already in place, so we can put our blade. Well, we need to put a pivot in there. Let's stick our pivot in. Get our stop pin back in the hole after it jumped out on us. And put our blade back in place. And how are we doing? Put a little bit of that 10 weight right here. Put that one in with the open side up, and then drop just a couple of drops on that side and put our washer down. And then, quite simply, we put this over the top. And man, these Bestech knives go together good. All right, there we go. Nope. Lift up on the lock bar and right through it comes. That is one thing I've got to give these guys. I fought with some old Hinderer knives. The XM18 I have right now isn't too bad. But I fought with some of those older Hinderer knives. You take them apart, you put them together, you got to tweak this and tweak that and make it work. And oh, they were a pain in my rear. I hated that. Loved the knives, but I hated that. And yeah, I moved to using a screwdriver to get our stuff started here, and that's not working well. So back to our penny. And now that I got some Vibratite on there, nope, it's going to stay. Next, excellent. But at some point, I moved to Spyderco and Benchmade, and the early Spydercos, and I say early, from a few years ago, they weren't all that much better. You'd have to fight with them, get them in place, blah, 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 blah. Benchmade, same thing. The Benchmade could eat up an entire afternoon trying to get things right. And that was just danged annoying. And then, what was the first one I bought? You know, I don't remember exactly what the first knife I bought that just worked was. But I started working with Wee knives, and I started working with stuff like these Bestechs and Riot and a number of others. And you just get to this point where you absolutely expect that the knife is going to be centered. I have missed saying that knives are centered, and we're putting our body screws back in here. I have missed saying that knives are centered in several recent reviews. Why? Because whenever I'm dealing with a Wee knife or a Bestech knife or a Riot knife or several other brands anymore, modern ZTs, I just expect for everything to be centered up like it was supposed to. And we forgot to put our nano oil down in the pivot hole on this one, didn't he? Well, we're not going to take this guy back apart. Just not going to do it, because I'm going to have it apart soon anyhow to do some anodizing on it. But check that out. Right down the wickets, just like it's supposed to be. Action is very good still yet. And that is our Bestech Goblin. That was what's inside it, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me and getting a look. Really love this little knife. And you guys have a great day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.